Welcome to Horror After Midnight. As always, y'all know I am the SaWGuy, joined tonight by my horror brother from another mother, KC. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good. How are you doing tonight, man?
Doing good. I'm excited as hell because we finally get to one of my other favorites in the Halloween franchise. I'm talking about Halloween 666.
Oh
It's one of my,
yeah,
oh, dude, this one, I was waiting for this one. I had to wait for this one because this film had so many legends and urban myths and everything about that. And the reason why I say 666, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, had to be the most 90s fucking film ever made. Before we get into the reviews, I'll throw out some things out there. It was directed by Joe Chappelle, not Chappelle Show, but Joe Chappelle. It also starred Donald Pleasance, his last film, unfortunately. It also starred a young Paul Rudd, who got his start doing Super Nintendo commercials, believe it or not, and got into this film. And this was done on a budget of 5 million, but it made 15.1 million. So it made a hell of a lot of money in theaters.
yeah.
Um, this was a great freaking film. This was the first one actually done by Dimension Films and Miramax as well. So that kind of throws in on some of the stuff we talked about on why it's going to be 666 and how why there was so much chaos. But KC, tell me, what are your thoughts about Halloween 666?
This one I liked it a lot. The whole cult thing was a little strange. Uh, I liked Paul Rudd's character. I thought he did a really good job. Uh, Overall, really good movie. Some things I didn't really like was with Jamie's character being recasted.
Ah,
Like, they built
God,
up
I know.
Yeah, they built up so much with part 4 and 5 to where you really like this character, but then they go and recast her in this film to where you don't even give a shit if she dies or not because it's not the same girl.
Yeah, that's and that's the thing that pissed me off about this because you grew to love her in part four, you rooted for her in part five, part six you recast her, and then this is supposed to be set like what 5 years, 6 years after it, and the movie starts off where you see this girl like and they don't say what it is, but she's in labor, has a baby, and then you find out that it's fucking Jamie, and one of the nurses felt bad so they let her go because then you start finding out that it's this weird, sick fetish cult that wanted like Michael Myers to impregnate her and shit. So
Okay,
that way
that's what
he
I was
could.
gonna ask. Yeah, it was Michael's baby?
Yeah, it was Michael's baby. That shit, man. It should have been Amori. You are the father. um, yeah, it was Michael's baby. They never explained how it happened. They just said that it was Michael's baby. So maybe they did in vitro fertilization. I don't know. But it was
Yeah,
kind of
some weird
weird.
incest shit.
Yeah, these sick fucking fetish cults, man. I mean, dare I say Illuminati, but it was some weird shit. And then when you find out that it wasn't like it was Jamie, and then you find out that it wasn't Daniel Harris. It was like, oh, come on. I know we talked a little bit off camera on this, but for the ones that don't know, the reason why she wasn't recast on it was because Daniel Harris had went through behind the scenes on a lot of stuff to get emancipated to do this film. She was willing to take a pay cut, and then all of a sudden, when she was ready to go, they're like, no, we don't need you. We already cast somebody else. What the fuck?
Yeah, it's not right. That hurt the movie a lot.
I know. And it sucks because the way they did Jamie's character was just shitty. She gets up, she's leaving. Michael goes on a rampage. The thing I like about this, Michael, this is the same actor, the same stuntman, George P. Wilbur, who did Michael Myers in part four. Now he's doing Michael Myers in part six. And you can tell he's gained some weight a little bit over the years, which is kind of cool because it shows he's a weathered old man. But the story goes is that Jamie's like trying to run, and she has this baby who she just literally gave birth to, running out in the rain and everything, trying to stop this guy. Stop! This guy's trying to kill me. And Michael Myers just kills the shit out of this dude in the truck. She gets in the truck, she's running, and she finally like finds a place at a bus stop to call. And long behold, like I guess they were doing a rip off or a haha thing on Howard Stern, because I guess they had this guy named Barry Sims, and she goes on the show, like calls in and says, "Help me! I need help with Michael Myers. Doctor Loomis, if you're there." They thought she was crazy. Then she goes and
Yeah.
hides the. Then she goes and hides the baby of all things, which okay, kind of weird at that point. But she hides a baby in a bathroom. And what bathroom has a freaking cabinet in a dude's bathroom? Have you ever seen a cabinet in a dude's bathroom?
No, no, I haven't.
Exactly. That's why I was like, what the hell is this? Um, she does that, starts going on a run, and the car breaks down or something happens. They end up on a farmland. Michael sees her, and then he like throws her on like this conveyor thing or this shredder, and then that's when she's like trying to reach out, and Michael's like trying to go to her, and then he just like as a fuck you, just grabs her and pushes her down. And she goes, "You can't have the baby, Michael. You can't have the baby." And then he fucking grinds her up.
Yeah, yeah. I remember him just like on the one I watched where he like just like pushes her down further, and you see all the spikes just like rip through her skin.
Yeah, dude. I mean, two whole movies, and you kill off Jamie like that. What the hell?
Yeah, she could have been a bigger part, but in this one, it focuses more around this girl that moves back in with her parents or whatever, has a son. Can't think of the son's name, but basically this cult that's got Michael or whatever has got some kind of power over this little boy there too that's also living in the Myers house. So
Oh
that's all
shit.
really strange how they're putting it all together, but kind of interesting.
Yeah, the thing is, the way I remember the kid's name, his name's Danny,
Yeah, that's
and
right.
supposedly they got that nickname because of the Shining series, Danny Boy.
Yeah, okay.
Um, it was kind of weird in the beginning where he's having nightmares, and he hears the Men in Black like yell at him, "Hi, Danny," and he wakes up. And the kid was annoying as an actor. Mommy, mommy. Um, but the thing that was kind of weird about this film, they tried to make it like every 90s horror film. And I don't know if you know this or not, or if you've seen this, but call me out if you guys see it, in the comments or anything. But every fucking 90s horror film always had an abusive asshole mom or abusive asshole dad. Am I wrong?
No, no, you're not wrong.
Right?
There was always someone. Yeah,
That's why I was like, what the fuck? And then they kind of like were explaining about that. The mom looked like Peggy Hill, and she was like trying to give her money, and the dad, he had a fucking Q-tip hair, and he was like
oh yeah,
being an
give her
asshole.
all her goddamn money and throws like money on the table at her.
Yeah, and he's like, things are good until you and that bastard showed up. And then when like she said, the only bastard I see is you, and he fucking backhands her, whack. And her
Yeah, and
son,
then fucking Danny pulls a fucking knife on him.
yeah, he fucking pulled one of those little paring knives, and he's like, what the fuck? Um, that was kind of weird. I don't know why they were trying to play into the whole social horror aspect, or not social. I should say it's domestic horror. They also kind of played in that her dad, he was kind of a dickhole. He was like a realtor that drank a lot, didn't sell any fucking homes, did the 9 to 5 job, but didn't give a fuck. And then kids were fucking with him because, like you said, they were living in the Myers house. So they had a sign that said for sale, and they fucking decked it out with Myers' face. And he's like, "You little bastards!"
Yeah, yeah, and the whole family didn't even know they were living in the Myers house until later in the film. Barry again from the radio show. He's there in the town or whatever. Come to the hometown of Michael Myers. Comes out there wearing just a fucking robe and some boxers or something like that. Then finds out one of the guys, the main guy, whatever that's there, or whatever, is living in the Myers house. And then what? He goes to his van and gets fucking randied in the fucking van.
God, that shit was funny. He goes, "I don't give a fuck about that pussy Myers. We're gonna go and see him." And then Michael comes up right behind him, and the whole van shakes. I was like, "Shit, he got Randy, dude." That fucking sucked. You know what's funny though? That you could tell his inspiration was a ripoff of Howard Stern. The way his voice was, the way how he was like trying to fuck with the dude and be like, "Oh, so your girlfriend wears the pants in the relationship." Um, it was the 90s. You had to live it to remember it. I thought what was kind of cool, but also kind of weird was Paul Rudd. he was the obsessed weird neighbor that like listened to the show. He called up this Barry Sims, and he talked about the story about I was only 5 years old when I met Michael Myers, and I never forgot that face. Like what the fuck? Um, with him being all weird, like they were started talking about Dr. Loomis, and then there, it was funny. He's like, "Well, he's either dead or retired." Then you see him there, Donald Pleasance. He turns around and he was like, "Oh, not dead yet, but very much retired."
Yeah.
Um, and I thought it was kind of crazy because then it shows this white dude come in, and I guess it was his old pal or colleague or whatever, and he's asking him about like, "Oh, enjoy retirement. What do you think of this whole Myers bullshit?" Um, Asking him questions, and it's kind of weird that he's asking these questions. They hear the stuff about what's going on with Jamie. At the same time, it's kind of weird. It's like almost Tarantino, like all this is happening at once. And Paul
Yeah.
Rudd, he tracks it down to where she was at, and he finds the baby, and then he finally breaks down and sees, Dr. Loomis, and he's like, Dr. Loomis, we got to talk. And he's like, well, who the hell are you? I'm Tommy. I'm the little kid. What? I haven't seen you in years. And I thought it was so cheesy where
He
he
was
goes
Tommy
in.
Doyle.
Yeah, I'm little Tommy Doyle. He goes into the hospital and he starts like telling the nurse, "Why I need a nurse?" Well, and he's like, "Well, what do you need a nurse for?" And he's like, "Cause I got a baby right here." And she's like trying to talk, and he goes, "No!" They fucking called security with something stupid. But then when they show him walking away, he looked like a weirdo, didn't he? Like holding the baby. Just
Yeah, very strange guy.
yeah, they. I don't know. I mean, I like the idea that he was fucking weird because Michael fucked him up, but it was also weird that he was a pervert, like staring at the girl, like who had
Oh
the
yeah, through the
son.
window and shit. Yeah.
Yeah, the peeping Tom. What the fuck?
Well, I think he didn't mean anything bad by that. I don't really think he was really meaning to peek on her, but I think because Myers got into his head so bad, he moved across the street from the old Myers house, and he's kind of just watching it, waiting for that one day when Myers comes back.
I didn't even think about that. I mean, he probably is shell shocked, and this one kind of made it weird because this is the one that was filmed in Carolina, I believe. So all the homes look different, and it was kind of weird how they did that. I also thought what was crazy is the fact that like, you know, you kill off Jamie, now you're trying to follow this family. You want us to give a shit about this family. There's the daughter with the son, and she moved back in. Apparently, she was wild and moved back in. The mom, the asshole dad. You had the brother with the girlfriend. Um, and then you had Tommy Doyle, who befriends the girl's son, Danny, because Danny was like one of those weird kids where he kept seeing shit. And then you see the man in black following him with the fucking road stomper shoes. The
Yeah,
ones he talks shit on part five, I can't. You're like, the fucking shoes. It wasn't Beetlejuice, but it was somebody in fucking boots like that following him. And then he bumps
yeah,
into
and
Tommy
basically trying to
Doyle.
bring that kid like into the cult. Like I don't know if they're trying to make him the new Michael or what, but
Yeah,
trying to bring him in too.
it was weird how they did that shit, dude. And then he bumps in, drops his pumpkin, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And then he becomes friends, and then he stays. And Tommy Doyle, he ends up living with his old lady, and this old lady is like weird, like he's like her roommate and shit. And when his mom comes home, she's like, "Where are you?" He's like, "Oh, I'm across the street with Tommy Doyle," and that's how he kind of met her, and they kind of started hanging out, started talking shit
Yeah,
about like what was going on. And as this is going on, then you find out that Dr. Loomis is like trying to figure out like what the hell's happening with Michael. And then that's where he kind of, Dr. Loomis is Dr. Loomis. He's going to snoop in everyone's business. So he goes and finds
yeah,
out about Tommy Doyle. He goes and finds out that across the street, they're living in the Myers house. He tells that to the mom, the one that looks like Peggy Hill. She gets pissed off and calls her husband, the asshole dad. It was like, you knew what you were bringing us into, and you couldn't sell this fucking home. We're leaving. It got to the point where she was like, I'm done with your bullshit. And the guy was like, ugh. Hangs up the phone. He starts drinking a fucking bottle of Canadian Mist. I wonder, was it really Canadian Mist that he was drinking?
I'm not sure. It was some type of brown liquor though. It could have been.
Yeah, I was like thinking, was it really fucking? Well, because that shit was popular back in the '90s, kids. Then they show that like she's putting away shit. She hears noises, and all of a sudden she sees Michael Myers, and typical old lady, like in the 1990s, your 40-year-old fucking ladies, you know, she's running all around. She trips and falls and like, uh, uh, runs through. And I love this scene because, she's hanging out bed sheets in the back. Michael Myers sees her, and then he has an axe that she had that was laying around, and he fucking guts her. Like, oh shit! Like that was a
Yeah,
cool kill.
didn't they have a sheet scene in like the original?
They did when what's her face? When Laurie Strode was looking through in the on the back window, remember?
Yeah.
That was kind of a cool homage. Then they also kind of played into the fact of like the dad was like all pissed off, and then he came home drunk later. And with that being said, he's like, "Oh damn, the bitch, she finally left me," and he
Yeah,
was
thanks
being
for
all
dinner.
stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for dinner. All drunk, and then he sees Michael, and Michael like fucks with him because he goes downstairs because he hears the washer dunk, 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 pulls it out. It's like her body parts or her head or something. Um, Michael comes out and then he stabs him and shocks him. And in the theater version, like he just shocks him and that was it. In the Halloween 666 producers cut, it's an extended scene where his head pops, which I thought was a cool kill.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't think I've seen that version.
Oh, dude, you gotta see it. And that's the bootleg one. That we'll get more into the 666 version in a sec, but afterwards, and that's when the kid starts hearing weird shit, and that's when you find out the old lady that he's living with, like she starts saying, "Well, he's starting to hear the noise, just like little Mikey Myers across the street." And it was a fucking setup where they fucking kidnapped the kid. They kidnapped the woman. She jumped out the window, fucking knocked herself out. They kidnapped her, and then he tries to go and see. Well, the mom was snooping around in her house, and then that's when Michael Myers is chasing after her, and she goes across the street to Tommy Doyle's house. All that shit goes on because you see like this cult, this weird fetish cult. They're following Michael. They kidnap the girl and the daughter, or no, not the daughter. They kidnap the girl and her son. um, then, well, that's all going on. That's the whole Barry Sims thing that happened. And then people panic because of the fact of like, what the fuck was it? Like the kid's like, it's raining. It's
Oh yeah, it's
raining.
raining red and it's warm, and then fucking
That was,
Paul Tommy comes over there and he looks up and there's a dead body like hanging with like Halloween lights in the damn tree.
yeah. That was actually a pretty decent scene. It was kind of weird and creepy how the kid's like, it's raining. It's red and warm. Um, oh, that was creepy. Um, but
Yeah,
then they
usually it's raining warm and you're usually getting pissed on.
exactly. That's how you bring on the leprechauns. Remember?
Yeah,
um, with that being said, like it followed the brother and his girlfriend back because they were dressed up as Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein. They go back to the house, have sex. Michael's there and kills them both. Kind of lackluster. He just fucking chokes them out. Um, then it builds up to this big ending where they have to go to Smith's Grove's, insane asylum, and Tommy recruits, Dr. Loomis to help him with it. They go over there
yeah,
and they
because the
find
cult's
out,
there like hiding out or something.
yeah,
So,
like,
uh, her Tommy's landlord or whatever is also part of this cult too.
yeah, it's what the fuck? They didn't even talk about any of this, at least in the theatrical version, right? So they go to Smith's Grove, like fucking 10 steps underground, right? And this is where like Tommy finds out where everybody's at. He breaks in and he sees Michael's coming after him, breaks down the door to break out, Kara, I think it was her name. Um, they start running through, and then Michael he freaking grabs her by the hair. She's pulling her back on the freaking bars, and then that's what did he shoot him with? I think it was like a pop gun or the fire extinguisher or something.
Ah, I don't remember. I know he shot him with some type of tranquilizer or something.
Yeah, because it pushed him back, and then they were still running. And then Michael was just like pissed off, like walking fast. Like when you see Michael Myers walking fast, you better get the fuck out of the way. They start
Yeah,
running, they hide, and they're hiding in this weird surgery room. And I thought this was one of the best kills out of the whole movie. Like Michael goes in there and as a fuck you to Jason Voorhees, he grabs a machete, goes in the room with all these doctors, and it starts flashing, and he's killing all these doctors. It was pretty brutal, dude. I freaking loved it. There's one through the window and shit, and then then I guess they're all still trying to like find him, right? And they find the kid, they find the baby, because they're with the cult leaders and shit. They go hide in a room, and they use the kid as bait of all things, which is fucked up. So the lady gets choked out, or the mom. Paul Rudd comes in and tries to fight Michael, and then he finds these tranquilizers to knock his ass down. And the kid's like, "Mom, mom, mom!" I thought that was kind of funny, just because the kid was over the top. Um,
Yeah.
he injects him with the shit to knock him out, and then he beats the shit out of him with the pipe. And then they start leaving, and then Loomis is like, "Quick, get in here, run!" And fucking, he has no key card, so he shoots the motherfucker. make, I guess that's how you make an elevator work. You shoot it. Um, then they leave, and then Tommy Doyle beats the shit out of him, which I thought was kind of cool. The scene, and they show like the mask like oozing out green, which I don't know what the fuck that meaning was. Did you?
Hmm. Green Blood. I'm trying to remember. Was that in part 3 with the robot?
Oh shit! Yeah. Okay. That's another cool homage. I didn't even think about that.
Maybe something with part 3. I think there was some kind of I think they had green blood. Yeah, I think so. But other than that, I don't know why else he'd have green blood unless they were trying to say Michael was some kind of like robot.
Well,
But that
I
would make
don't.
sense. I don't know.
I think he was just beating the fucking devil out of him or some shit, because they were showing all these flashing scenes and like screaming like ah, and he was like fucking bleeding, and then he was knocked out. And I
Yeah.
thought it was kind of cool, because then afterwards they end the movie where he's like, come with us, Dr. Loomis." Um, and Loomis is like, "No, I got to stay here and deal with this," right? And they take off. Loomis goes back in. It shows the pumpkin, and then he's screaming, "Huh, huh, huh," and they ended the film, and they dedicated this film to Donald Pleasant because this was his last film that he did. And that was the end of the theatrical version. I mean, what'd you think of it?
Overall, I mean, I like this movie a lot. It's not the best, but I'd give it like a 6 out of 10. Not bad at all. Really enjoyed Paul Rudd's character. The whole cult thing was really strange. But I mean, I guess they had to lead into it from part 5 where they had that guy wearing those boots or whatever and it breaks Michael out. So, I mean, I get it, but it's a really strange movie, but not a bad movie. Could have been worse.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm agreeing with you on that one. I have to give that one a 6 out of 10, at least for the theatrical version, right? And I'll get into the 666. But I know we kind of jumped around like in the movie scenes and everything like that. But Halloween 6, I thought alone the theatrical version was pretty decent for what it was. They did bring back continuity with the Man in Black. They did bring in continuity with Jamie, even though it was a different actor. They did bring in the fact that he was cursed, which they did talk about a little bit, vaguely, about how Michael would hear these voices and shit. And as I would have loved if they would have followed the whole cult storyline, if they would have slowly planted the seeds and built it up. They did in part 5, and it just kind of blew up. And then part 6 kind of showed it, but theatrically, it didn't show much. It was like, what the fuck is this? Now, going in, why I'm talking about the 666 producers cut is because this was the first film from Miramax, right? Dimension Films, when they took over. And the thing that sucked about that was it was such a shit show. They filmed everything because, one, Donald Pleasance was sick. Two, they didn't know what the fucking film. Three, they couldn't decide on the story. They were making the story on the fly. So they filmed a bunch of shit, and they had their first cut of the film. People called it the producer's cut. And then, us as fans in the 90s, we started calling that Halloween 666. And it became this legend to where the film that was released was not the film that we were supposed to see. Like there was like at least 20, 30 minutes of footage. Well, I guess some guy at Miramax said, "Fuck you," got a VHS tape, copied all these scenes, and then bootlegged that shit where it went from one VHS to like all these other different VHSs. And the myth was out that there was a Halloween 666 version. And people would get those scenes and splice them in, and it made a lot more sense. I mean, obviously there was more death kills, better death scenes. They talked more about the cult. They showed how they tried to sacrifice the girl Kara, and her son was just sitting there holding the baby, watching her and shit. Some weird shit like,
Yeah.
um, and then the ending was completely different, where it shows the mask and Michael Myers away, like, and then it shows Dr. Loomis saying, "Oh, I got some business to handle." They show that he goes back and he sees Michael Myers on the ground. He pulls up his like sleeve and sees that he's got the curse of Thorn. He's like, "No, no!" So what the fuck? Like they were trying to follow that he killed Michael and the curse travels to people. Like they couldn't decide on what they wanted on the story. But that version, I would give that one a 7 out of 10 instead of 6 for the theatrical. And the reason being is because you had 20 minutes of footage that could have made or break the film, and it was really cool. Like I remember seeing it and buying fucking bootleg VHS tapes from eBay back in 1999 and 2000. Um, to see these scenes because that's when you didn't have them. Of course, now with the Halloween box set, I know Casey, you probably got this box set, but they have the Halloween 6 version, and then in the Halloween 6 version, they also have the producer's cut. So it's all the deleted scenes put in the theatrical. So that way it explains it. You can watch it all together as one. You can watch part 6 by itself, or you can look at just the deleted scenes. It explained a lot, but the only thing that sucked is that this film was critically panned. All of us fanboys fucking hated the theatrical version. They demanded this was like the Snyder cut. This is Snyder cut before Snyder cut of DC films because they
Well,
wanted this film re-released with like all the producer cuts, right? And instead of doing that, they decided, fuck you, we're gonna reboot the series again and call it H2O because it's 20 years later, and then Jamie Lee Curtis would come back to it.
yeah, and the next one they did change it completely. Where like this one ain't got nothing to do with the next one.
Yeah, that's and that's what kind of sucks because now you got one timeline where it's 1 and 2. You got another timeline with part 3 because it's anthology. Then you got a timeline with 4, 5 in its own right. 6, I mean, you can consider 6 part of it, but I mean,
Yeah,
some
say
people
five
do.
and six. Yeah, 5 and 6 go together because that one guy at the end of 5 does break them
Yeah,
out and ends up being Dr. Loomis's colleague or whatever. I think.
yeah, and see, and that's its own, and they call that one the Curse of Thorn timeline. And then, of course, you have H2O that breaks out to Resurrection. That's its own timeline that follows right after part 2. And then, of course, you got the whole wormhole with Rob Zombie, and then later on the later remakes. But I mean, any final thoughts on Halloween 6? I mean, have you ever seen the producer's cut?
I thought I did, but when I just looked a little while ago, no, I do not think I have that one. So I have to go and look for that one.
Oh shit! Oh my god, you haven't seen it, dude. You're missing out on so many good scenes. Some of the scenes they put it back into the TV. Like if you watch it on AMC or whatever, if they come on TV, they'll pop some on there. Um, I know I want to finally end up on us talking about. Of course, you can't talk about Michael Myers without talking about the mask. So, what'd you think of part 6 in the mask?
In the beginning, when he hangs that one nurse up against the wall and just kind of stands there and looks at her and like tilts his head,
Mm-hmm.
he just looked really fat.
He aged, dude. Come on, that's George P. Wilbur.
But other than that, I mean, the mask looked all right. It just wasn't the same as like the first two movies with those masks. Those are great, but it kind of slowly goes downhill.
Yeah, I liked how they did this mask. They tried bringing it back to the roots. The thing that screwed me up is that they gave him a buzz cut, right? The hair was wild, it was short, and it was just kind of, it was just there like a fucking Q-tip. But they made his hair black. Like, Michael Myers' hair was brown, auburn, like almost reddish in tint. But they made
Yeah,
it black. And they did the cheekbones a little bit different. And the mask was cool, but this is another continuity that pissed me off. You see in part 5, his skin's normal. You see in part 4, he's burned. Well, in part 6, he's fucking burned. They show his hands and his skin, and he's fucking burned.
yeah.
Um, I like the continuity, but goddamn, I just hate where one film does it, one doesn't, and then it goes back and it does. That was my only issue. Really, is the continuity with it.
Yeah,
Um, but I mean, the mask wise, I thought it was really cool. They made him like an asshole in this one, where originally they were trying to control Michael Myers, and then he just said, "Fuck you, you're not going to control me." The ending was kind of weird. Like they beat the curse out of him with the green ooze and shit.
yeah,
Um, I mean, I like the scene. How if they would have did it as blood, that would have been cool. But I think maybe there was a rating situation. Maybe Miramax wanted to do green blood. I don't know. Um, like I said, there was a shit show with Miramax, but yeah. But I mean, overall, not bad. 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 for producer's cut. You give a 6 out of 10. Um, Halloween 6 wasn't that bad, but I mean, wait till we talk about H2O and you know, Zeke's haircut. Like, god damn, that was terrible.
yeah, yeah. That'll be next. Halloween H2O.
Mhm.
Halloween 6. I think it's a good movie. Out of the series, it's not the best, but it's definitely not the worst. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, I'll definitely check it out. Been out forever, so yeah, I'm sure most people already have. But yeah, I mean, a decent movie. Just not. I don't know. The original's hard to beat.
I mean, you think they would learn that, 6 films in almost, but like Slinky says, it's in the script. So
Yeah.
I don't know about you. Fuck it, let's go watch H2O.